Morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Hancock Symposium. We're very excited you're here. I'm Abby Coates. I'm professor of psychology, and I have the privilege of introducing our speaker this morning, Marc Cordon. He majored in neuroscience and behavioral biology at Emory University in Atlanta, and also received his master's in public health there. He spent many years leading initiatives in student affairs at Emory, including the Happiness Challenge. He founded Greater Good Strategic and Life Coaching, and he works with all kinds of entrepreneurs and people who are change makers. He's also the author of Beyond Resilient, The Coach's Guide to Ecstatic Growth. And he plays roller derby as Manila Ice. So welcome, Marc Cordon.
Let me see you. Good morning. Sean Gonzalez was my best friend in 3rd grade. He got me into radio-controlled cars, and I'm not talking about the cheap insert AA battery type of remote control cars that you get like at Best Buy. With these cars came a subculture of RC cars enthusiasts, dirt tracks, and racing with friends. These fierce, fiery, tiny little radio-controlled rockets were built from the ground up with love and care. I saved my money. Y'all, I saved my money from doing odd jobs like plucking the gray hairs out of my dad's head, 25 cents per hour he gave me, and I saved that money. I saved it for most of my 3rd grade year until I could buy my own radio-controlled car. I saved my money, I did odd jobs, and I thought about what car I would get. I was going to get the Hornet. I was going to paint it black and yellow like Bruce Lee's jumpsuit from the Game of Death, and like Bruce himself, it was going to be faster than fast. I imagined working on its servos and tightening the bearings, painting chassis with Sean as I slowly chipped away at earning enough money to purchase one, having Dad drop us off at the track saying, "I'll pick you up when it gets dark." Until the day of reckoning came when I asked my parents to take me to Han's hobby shop so I could buy my $119 kit. Do you know how hard it is for a 3rd grader to save $119? I proudly entered the store, presented the gentleman with my money, and asked for my Hornet radio-controlled car. He saw that my parents were there with me, and he asked to speak to them. He told them that this was a car for adults. Now, I was already getting self-conscious because I was already the shortest kid in the class, and I looked like I was a 1st grader among 3rd graders. But I whispered to my parents through my teeth, "But Sean built his too." And I could see this was going down fast, y'all. The shop owner was adamant. And when I knew that this car was not going to be able to be purchased, though my parents were trying the best that they could with him, and I was more than capable of putting it together, I slowly removed myself from the situation, calmly walked out of the hobby shop, behind our brown Chrysler minivan with the wood sidings, and I proceeded to have a cry that was so powerful that no noise actually came out. It was like someone punched through my stomach. What went wrong? What went wrong, I asked myself. And I remember not even wanting the $119 back. I was inconsolable. And the following Christmas, my parents surprised me with that Hornet. It was with the exact Bruce Lee inspired, there it is, look at that. It's with the exact Bruce Lee inspired colors. The servos were exactly the way that I wanted them. I loved going to Sean and racing with these, but something was different. Something was different when someone gave me that car and I was not allowed to earn it myself. It was never going to be the same again. Now here I am in front of y'all, talking about being a third grader who didn't get a car, but those things still stick with me. What is your Hornet moment? What is your Hans hobby shop moment? It's 30 years later, and I still question myself sometimes with my internal talk saying, am I not adult enough to be a father? Am I not adult enough to have my own job, my own business? Am I adult enough to give a talk in front of a whole bunch of people and people there on the live stream? That's what I'm talking about today, y'all, with self-talk. Self-talk has the power to change worlds. It also has the power to destroy worlds. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? Look at that Hornet again, though. Like, that is so dope. Oh, Hans. You know, this quote, worlds create worlds up here. Words create worlds. It conveys an ancient truth that the words we utter contain power. We see the illustrated religious text where God speaks, let there be light. Its words are the creation. I am. Right? But also when it comes to self-talk can harness your reality. When self-talk is negative, it undermines our confidence and aborts creative potential. However, we can intentionally harness self-talk's creative power by focusing it in positive direction. I'm going to talk really quickly about a study that was done that I think is a really great way to think about how words create worlds and your inner world shapes the way you work interactively with it. There was a study done in the Netherlands where they were working with patients who considered themselves anorexic. And when it was time for them to come into the study, they had huge double doors that were open wide for these folks. And what happened? As they walked through the door, they turned sideways. Why? Because they thought they were too big to fit in 2 double doors regularly. That's how much our inner world can change our outer world and the way we interface with it, right? So before we go on, I want to define self-talk, right? There's a person by the name of Ethan Kross in Michigan that talks about excessive chatter. Now, this is anytime you're thinking, you have something that keeps going on, you are talking to yourself before a big test. For athletes, you're saying to yourself, certain things that you want to have impress on the world, right? Ethan Kross also says that's not a bad thing. The part that gets concerning is the part where you start to diminish in happiness or the part where you start to diminish in productivity. Or when you're up late at night, this is me for the longest time. You're up late at night and you've got thoughts racing through your head. For me, for the longest time, I didn't know that was something normal. Thoughts would race through my head. I'd go and think about the way that my day was and recreate these scenarios of the kind of conversations that I would have with people. And as a result, I'd come in thinking that my inner world was one thing, but my outer world was something completely different. Then I realized that there's a lot of people who go through this self-talk dilemma. So I want to go through an interdisciplinary way of thinking about self-talk. Anyone here a psychology major? Yeah? Sociology? I heard there's a positive psychology course on campus. Anyone take that? One? Dude, you all need to take a positive psychology course if it's on your campus. I see 2. So yeah, let's look at this from an interdisciplinary way of things. So the first thing is psychology, right? We go and look at sort of this negative talk that can lead to anxiety, depression, and as a result, higher rates of mental health issues when self-talk is pessimistic or critical. It also looks at things from the standpoint of positive self-talk, how that can improve your life, your well-being. Consciously shifting self-talk to be more constructive can improve mental health. Let's look at it from a sociological or social psychology standpoint. Do we have social psychology on campus? Are we teaching? We do? There you are. So like social psychology is essentially this. The way you show up in the world has an impact on you, and the way you show up has an impact on your environment. So self-talk in social psychology looks like group identity, a sense of belonging. It talks about intergroup dynamics, self-awareness through the community that you're in. So it really is, instead of the psychology standpoint of things, when you are, what's going on in your head, social psychology goes and says, okay, what's in your head then goes to the environment. And what's in the environment then goes back into your head. It's a really cool interplay of things. And by the way, it's really nice of you folks to be taking notes. I will email these to you as well. I want you to be with me on this one. Okay? Are they getting a test for this? Okay. Okay, let's talk about positive psychology with my two friends over there in the room. Positive psychology isn't happiness all the time. It's not toxic positivity. It's not something along the lines where when things get bad, we just try to put a happy smile on things. Positive psychology is looking at what's working. And self-talk in positive psychology you can look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what is working with my self-talk? So for example, I don't know if y'all are like this, but like when I take tests, even if I get like a 99 on the test, I want to go and look at the one thing that's wrong, and I beat myself up about that one thing that's wrong that didn't give me 100. Positive psychology will go and say what worked. And then when you go and take your next test using self-talk, you can say, I'm going to apply what worked onto this next test. Also at the same time, self-talk fosters positivity. It makes sense, right? But also at the same time, people will always, I'm a coach too, and people will always come to me and they'll be like, yo, I want to turn my life around, I want to be more positive. And then when I talk to them about the way their day is going, they'll go and say, well, this person was a jerk, this person was an a-hole, and this blah, 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 blah. How do you expect to have positivity when your self-talk is all around negativity, right? And also at the same time, when it comes to positive psychology, self-talk helps with achievement. I want to talk about two things as a person who's trained in positive psychology. Number one, and this is just the big thing in terms of what I do in my work anyways. Number one is what you're doing making you feel happier. Number two is what you're doing making you feel more productive. Because what a lot of positive psychologists would say is, if you can find things that make you happier and more productive, you're living a flourishing life. So when I go and talk about self-talk, think about self-talk as being, is it self-talk that boosts your happiness or reduces the happiness? And is it self-talk that increases your productivity or decreases your productivity? So for example, when I'm crippled with self-talk, my productivity just plummets. Mark, you're not going to be able to do this. Mark, you're not going to be able to create your next course. Mark, you're not going to be able to be a great partner, right? So I want you to think about what are the things in your life right now that bring you happiness, and what are the things that increase your productivity. Positive psychology would go and say, do those things a few more times, and you're going to get more and more flourishing. Neurobiology, neuroscience, talks about certain places in the brain that light up when self-talk happens. There's actually places that light up, And also at the same time, when you use self-talk in a certain way, it creates new neural pathways. So if y'all have ever been like, oh gosh, this dude's gonna make me do self-talk again. It's so corny. I have to look in a mirror and say I am, or whatever the heck you think about self-talk. Part of that is the resistance in the brain not wanting to change its neural pathway. Self-talk takes work when you go and change that, y'all. When you go and change something negative to something positive. Okay, I want to talk about the evolutionary origins of self-talk. The cool thing about self-talk is that it can be utilized in any way that you want it to be, right? When it comes to the power of self-talk, before we go into the negative side of self-talk, It's that self-talk can reframe perspectives and change how we see negative situations. This one was a big one. Instead of viewing things as obligations, you can switch that and you can view things as things that you get to do. Every time I get worried about giving a talk in front of other people, I want to run. But when I think of the fact that I get to be here in a different state, talking to people about Brooklyn Pizza Company or wherever I'm going to go tonight, I realize that this is a privilege. It's not something that I necessarily want to be nervous about and run away from. That happens in daily life. We get nervous, we get scared, and when we have to do something, it makes it even harder. How about reframing that by saying, I get to do something? That already triggers this feeling of being grateful for something. And I don't know if y'all have taken that course, but in being grateful, that has the power after 6 weeks to give you a mild boost, like like ADHD medication, and also a mild antidepressant effect without any medication. Just being grateful, just by saying, I get to do something. Also at the same time, self-talk can convert hostile places to hospitable ones, right? And what I mean by that is, I'm just gonna be honest, when I was in college, I was beat up, I was bullied, right? And I had this impression in me that only Filipinos would want to be around me, right? I didn't think that anybody else would want to be around me. And so when I was in other rooms, I perceived those other rooms as places that were hostile to me, places where I think people wrote me off, or places that I felt where I was marginalized. And the thing was, in working with other student organizations when I was in college, in terms of pushing myself through the work that mentors gave me, I began to realize that I was more of a Filipino when I'm not with Filipinos than with Filipinos. Things that were hostile became hospitable. In what you're doing over here in Westminster, in what you're doing with the symposium, in what you're doing with the things that what you want to do outside of Westminster, what are the places that you think are hostile? What are those places? And how can you convert hostility into hospitality? It can be transforming from the standpoint of being lonely. And I don't know about you, but when I was in college and even now, loneliness will creep up on me. Even when I'm around a whole bunch of people. I don't know if you felt that, like being around a whole bunch of people and still feeling lonely. What self-talk does, it helps you understand that you're never alone, you're connected. And when you're by yourself, you can be in solitude, where you feel fine not being with anybody. You feel great. So that's the power of self-talk. And I don't want to have this talk eradicate self-talk. It's just not, there's too many great things about self-talk. But it's important for us to understand the impact of negative self-talk. Because negative self-talk is when you're telling these things, hey, Mark, you're not good enough to build a car in third grade, right? These repetitive things keep showing up and showing up and showing up for you until you reach the point where I can't do anything anymore. If I can't build a car, I can't be a dad. I can't do these things. I can't run my business. It becomes hyperbolic, right? And that's where self-talk gets wild and crazy, right? I just want to look at you guys for a second. Has anyone in here had negative self-talk in the past week? You're smiling. What was your self-talk? Both of you. Anyone not feel like they didn't have enough time and things always, yeah, look at that. Anyone feel that this week? Kind of, yeah. What about you? Would you say that that's like perfectionism? Any perfectionists in here? Self-talk, right? Anyone else that wants to talk about something that's going, let's go to this side. I saw hands being raised over here. What was something that you said this week that you realize is self-talk now and negative self-talk? I saw your hands go up. I can go and call on you. Yes, my friend. What was the voice you were hearing? I'm not enough. Yeah? Yeah. Did you raise your hand or you want to say something? So what's the self-talk, brother? It sounds like that self-talk is I'm half-assing it. Anyone having half-assing self-talk this week? Yeah, yeah. As you can see, self-talk is insidious, and oftentimes when we are in solitude, negative self-talk could bring us into loneliness. One of the big things, and hopefully I'm going to be able to, my watch, okay. One of the big things that I'm going to be talking about later on is creating a culture where we can address our self-talk and not go through it by ourselves. We shouldn't be going through self-talk and thinking we're the only ones, yeah? Because that's how it separates us. And creating a community here at Westminster, in your clubs, in your sororities, outside of Westminster, I think this is called Fulton that we're in, you know, Missouri in general, we can create communities where self-talk is brought up, right? You guys talked about it. Common forms of self-talk, self-criticism, I got it, yep. Self-doubt, I got it. Helplessness, yeah. Perfectionism. Abby, catastrophizing. Do you ever feel it? Yeah. What about labeling and judging? No? Well, I guess that's just a me thing, because I feel it a lot. Yeah. So oftentimes, like, people will come up to me and they'll be like, yo, I'm not really saying anything in my head. I'm not saying the exact words. But if you feel self-criticism, if you feel self-doubt, if you feel helplessness, if you feel perfectionism, catastrophizing, or labeling, sometimes that could be considered self-talk. Now, I'm not going to go wild with all of these things today because you're very smart. You've got incredible faculty and staff. Faculty and staff, you have incredible students. I just want to talk about one thing. Practice this. If you want to disrupt self-talk, there's 3 things that you can keep in mind. Number 1 is to notice self-talk. And that's usually the hardest thing, right? Because for 46 years of my life, like this invisible tapestry that is around me, I don't see it anymore. I just think that that's a part of daily life. I usually can't spot my negative thoughts, except when I purposely think about, is this decision or is this rumination making me happier? Or is this decision or rumination making me more passionate or productive? That's the way that I can deal with it when I'm not with my people, I'm not with my mentor, I'm not with my coach. Yes, and I'm not with my therapist. You know, oftentimes someone will be able to spot it before I understand it. But think about that, spotting it. What are the actions that you can take after this lecture is over to spot negative self-talk, sorry. Now, there's paying attention to things, but in paying attention to things, we can then go and say, stop. Stop. Disruption, new behavior, stop. Then try to insert the new behavior. That's it. That's the big part of my lecture, y'all. Spot it, get something new, and then, or tell it to, or spot it, tell it to stop, and then something new. And we can do that in community, and you can do that when you're walking to that gas station up the road that I went and got a Mountain Dew from last night. You can do it by yourself. So now let's talk about when bad stuff starts happening, right? A big part of my work that I've done for over like 10 years was diversity, inclusion, identity development, student success. And the biggest thing that I've seen happen is this. Self-talk can lead to self-oppression, right? When I was a little one, like, There was nothing that could stop me. I was going to be an astronaut and a surgeon, and I was going to be giving lectures, and I didn't know what TED Talks were, but I'm sure that my 6-year-old self wanted one. I couldn't be stopped until a Hans Hobby Shop moment. Until someone said, I don't think that you're worthy. I don't think that you're capable of doing what you want to do. And from that, self-talk started. I'm sure there was more areas that it did. Again, I'm going to ask, what was your Hans Hobby Shop moment? Right? I also want to talk about the media, and the things that we take in, the things that we see, the things that we buy can often shape our identity. And for example, do you all remember a couple years ago, the McDonald's commercial was like, I'm loving it and be happy. I think Coke was about happiness, right? The idea behind those things were, hey, you're not happy, come to McDonald's. We'll make you happy. Hey, you're not happy, you're talking a lot in terms of your self-talk, your negative self-talk. We can fix that with a Coke. Media, and especially now social media, shapes those things. And so I want to give you a little more background of my story. It wasn't just Hans Hobby Shop. My story starts with these two beautiful people. My pops was I guess you would say from the trendsetters in Manila. He wanted to be in the scene, and my mom was from the country part of the Philippines, right? She didn't have any electricity or running water. And in some way, shape, or form, these two people left the Philippines individually. They didn't know each other at all, except for one time interacting in the Philippines. And they created something very, very beautiful. They created me. Look at that. I'm eating an egg. My metabolism was probably super high. They gave me an all-American life. And then they created something equally amazing. They created my sister, Melissa. And through being Filipinos who were growing up in America, we definitely got to hear the stories of my grandfather, the stories of my mother being in the rice fields when the Japanese were coming in to terrorize the Philippines. And also, I got to grow up with this all-American lifestyle, right? Look at these shorts. I wasn't ashamed of, love those shorts. I wanted to be an astronaut, so they took me to Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Dad had always he always dreamed when he was in the Philippines of taking his son fishing, right? Nintendo. I believe this is Easter because they always made me wear this red vest on Easter. But I don't want to call it, it's kind of materialism. Look at me in the bike and how excited I am. They didn't get to grow up with those things. We had first grade party or birthdays in the morning where we would wake up early and put our Velux blankets around each other. Pizza Hut. Anyone here when Pizza Hut was not delivery and it was like a sit-in restaurant? It was so good. And we used to plan for months having our birthday parties there. Also in my house, this was a constant. My dad was a musician and we were constantly playing music in the house, right? And so with that, he wanted me to play violin, right? He wanted me to take the lessons he took. But for me, internally, I wanted to be Michael Jackson. I guess I didn't get the slide of Michael Jackson here. I wanted to be Michael Jackson from the Thriller album, by the way, not the other albums. The Thriller Michael Jackson with the glove. I wanted to be him. And where did Melissa and I learn that from? We learned it from the things that we saw on the television. We learned it from the way people talked about community, race, who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. And then all of a sudden, this thing came out. Those Asian American whiz kids, right? Look at that. We got that person in the pigtails, with a super old school Mac. Look at this guy with the backpack. This guy with the basketball. Those Asian American whiz kids. The only thing that I didn't see up there were people who looked like Michael Jackson. I saw people in the sciences, in engineering, people who were whiz kids. And what did that do for me? Well, it put my dreams of being Michael Jackson at bay, and I did what the whiz kids did. I did what my parents did. I got a neuroscience degree, and I also got a public health master's. And this is the day that I got it. Look at, look at me. Look at that face. That's the face of someone who thinks that they have got it, and they don't know shit. Look at how cocky I was. Mom and Dad, look, you got your boy to get a master's degree. And I worked for pretty decent wage in a hospital for a while. And you know what happened? I became Michael Jackson. I left my job. I started writing my own music. I was with other Asian Americans, so we went and said that we were the best Asian American band in the South, and we were, because there were no other Asian American bands in the South. But also at the same time, there were two things that were going in terms of interplay. The things that I saw in the media, the things that told me what I should be, and the things that I wanted to do. I want you to think about shoulds. Who's telling you, or what's telling you, what you should do? Should you take a certain class? Should you do it the way that your parents did it? Think about self-talk. Because if you're saying should, that's a good chance that you're using self-talk. At the end, I want us to talk about should a little bit more, okay? I'm staring at you guys, and like whenever I hit eye contact with you, like people will like kind of back up. I see you. I see you chuckle. So let's talk about a few things when it comes to like negative self-talk and how to disrupt that. The first thing is psychological distancing. Psychological distancing is this. If I'm standing in my perimeter, what can I do to get out of my body and be more objective with myself, right? So psychological distancing, you've seen people probably do this. It's very much like The Rock from WWE. They'll address themselves as you or third person, like The Rock smells this, blah, blah, blah. That's psychological distancing. Have you ever been getting ready for a sport, and maybe you're like dribbling the ball? I don't know what it's called. Free throw, right? Sometimes people will stop, and you can see them lip this. You got this. You got this. Oftentimes people would use their name. Mark, you've got this. Mark, you're connecting with the crowd. They don't want to see you fail. They want to connect with you too, right? I have to do this because Abby was talking about it earlier. One of the things that I backed into when it came to psychological distancing was like at the age of 40, I got this bright idea to be a roller derby star, right? And one of the things that they ask you to do in roller derby is to talk about like who your alter ego is going to be, right? I'm like, I'm Mark, it doesn't matter, right? And so I started playing more and more, and I developed the moniker Manila Ice. I am Manila Ice, baby, right? They don't even, honestly, they didn't even know my real name. They just called me Manila Ice. It's like that crazy in the roller derby world. But the thing was I broke my arm incredibly bad, dislocated the elbow, all those sort of things. And I was full of myself. I was like, oh, woe is me, victim-mindedness. And one of my team members said, what would Manila Ice do? And I said, well, Manila Ice wouldn't complain. Manila Ice would have fun with this. Manila Ice would be like keeping people connected. He would be showing up for people. And that's what I didn't do. That's what Manila Ice did. And I know it's a corny name, but that person was free of being Marc Cordon. He was free of being embarrassed to be a 40-year-old who just broke his arm on skates. He was a person that helped me get to the next level and not only like rehabilitate my elbow, but also to make the team. I feel like this is a humble brag, but I was also the Rookie of the Year, and 12 months later I was invited to be a skater in Team Philippines. I know metabolism catches up, but I was yoked, y'all. Who or what is your alter ego? And how can you employ that alter ego to get you where you need to go, productivity-wise and happiness-wise? Oh, I didn't change the the picture here. Should talk. Should talk means that oftentimes we will create those boundaries. And what we should be doing is in the center of those boundaries. And what we shouldn't do are on the outskirts of those boundaries. Do you know how much I talk to my, I talk to my mentor about whether I should be wearing a tie or not? I'm stuck in the shoulds as well, y'all. I don't want to look bad. I meant to delete this. But also at the same time, they found some legitimacy in the use of I am statements. I'm Filipino and proud, baby. I'm strong. I'm fierce. I'm connected. They have found that when you say those, say I ams, and you use that with actually knowing what that feels like, that has an intrinsic power of bringing you to more happiness and more productivity. I don't know, has anyone heard these tapes where they say I am? It's like, I am lovely and I am too good for my blah, 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 right? It's nothing unless you can actually feel what that feels to be happy, to know your worth, to know you're connected. And then there's media, right? I talked about it earlier. When it comes to media, sometimes there's people like us that just don't show up in the media. I still, like you guys can tell me afterwards, but I still have yet to see a Filipino dude like be a part of a mainstream band. But that doesn't mean that because they're not in the media, that it makes me any less capable or worthy of being that type of person. Be wary of what you see in the media. And if you start to feel down about it or like, I should do what people think about me and not go out after this band, or not go and stop my time at Westminster and travel the world and then come back later. I should graduate first, right? So be wary of the media. Also, to be added with the media is social media. When it comes to social media, we all know this, right? We know that it's just an amalgam of like happy pictures from people that doesn't really show the exact nature of what it means to live life. We know it. But also research is showing that we still are impacted by it. We still are saying shoulds based on the things that we see in social media. Okay, this is the fun part. I'm so excited about this part. Because this is a symposium, and what I like is to talk about, like, yeah, it's one thing for you guys to do your shoulds and media literacy and all this. What does this actually mean to use self-talk to be happy, to create a culture of positive self-talk? I'm so stoked to be talking about this with you guys. So the first thing is this, right? I've been telling a lot of stories because of the fact that these are my narrative. And if I'm going to tell you guys to write your narrative, or if I'm going to suggest that you try your narrative, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it for you guys. Rewriting your inner narrative can be something along the lines of, well, this is what life looked like before. And for me, a lot of my narrative before was about how much of a victim I am. Look, there's no one who looks like me in the media, blah, 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 blah. Victim, 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 victim. And I get to address it with you as something that I'm so proud and so lucky to have happened to me, right? So the first thing that I want y'all to think about is this. How can you start a revolution with self-talk, right? Now, faculty and students, I have to be honest, like this is something I use for my course called the Joy Revolution. I got it from Emory University, and I don't remember who had this revolution theory. So if you do know it, let me know, okay? But what it says is this. In revolutions, we want to radically change the way that we live our lives, right? And the thing is that if we're living our lives and we want to create change, oftentimes what happens is, look at me, I'm creating change. I'm pulling on this rubber band that is the organization. And then when you leave, you let go, and the organization snaps back to what it was before. Anyone ever experienced this or see this happen in organizations? For me in college, what it looked like was I busted my butt to create a Filipino student association. And then when I left, it dissolved, which isn't necessarily starting a revolution. It was just me having fun for 3 years, getting some of the school's finances, and then leaving. But what does it mean to start a true revolution? Here's 5 steps to think about. Number 1, make the invisible visible. What are the things that are going on at Westminster that we just have said, well, this is always how it's been? This is the way that Westminster is. What are the things that are invisible that you want to make visible? Number 2, how can we build relationships, right? When I was at Emory University, I was charged with creating a Flourish Emory campaign, one in which we make the students happier, and I guess with faculty, we would engage them in that as well. And it didn't hurt that this drew in some money to the university, right? But what that entails is when you're creating a revolution, you want to get everybody on your side, as many people as possible. For those I'm sure we talk about feminism here. There's a feminism class. Yeah. So for those of you who are studying the feminist movement, the first wave, you remember folks like Frederick Douglass. Frederick, a dude. They went and asked Frederick to be a part of that cause. Why? Because by building relationships, a revolution can start. Number 3, understanding the infrastructure. Whether you're here on Westminster College as an administrator, or whether you are wanting to change something in the Fulton community, how is the infrastructure built? So let me go back to the infrastructure of the Flourish Emory program. When I was using revolution theory, I looked at the infrastructure at Emory and I said, I want to go and see if Corey Keyes, who is the happiness guru faculty person on campus, I want to see if he'll jump on board. I want to see if the provost wants to jump on board. I'm going to get myself into the university senate and I'm going to rub elbows with them, help them out on their cause, and they can help me and my students with the Flourish Emory piece. What are the infrastructures that you want to work with or change or have a conversation with? I have one, such a great thing. My roommate once was talking about literacy in Georgia, right? And she took in a lot of undocumented students, and she also took students from very high class families. And what they did was create this like sticker campaign. It was like so punk rock. And they took these stickers about literacy and they stuck them on all the stop signs, right? And they only had the privileged students do that. Why? Because if they got busted, it wouldn't be that bad. But for the undocumented students, if they got busted putting a sticker on there, it would be bad. She understood the infrastructure. Number 3 or 4 is catalyze the change. Do the thing. Take the action, right? And this is the way that it doesn't snap back, is sustain the action. Have a plan of action, and when you leave the university or when you retire or when you move to the next level, the action keeps going. You stretch the environment, you let go, and it's frozen. Revolution theory, right? I'm going to send you a whole bunch of these slides in terms of things that you can do here, right? But if I got things, like I'm so stoked, like I created some things that students can do here, ways that students can lead the charge, ways that we can build a supportive infrastructure, just a whole bunch of cool stuff I'm going to send you guys, right? Let's talk about creating a sense of community. Oh, this one, I love this one too. I'm so nerding out on this one. Okay, so creating a community has 4 parts. This was the work of McMillan and Chavis, who's a group of, they're a duo from Vanderbilt University. And they went and said this: if you want to create a sense of community, number 1, identify the membership. Who are the members and who are the non-members? If you walk around campus, you get to see like Greek symbols. You get to see like t-shirts with clubs on it, right? Those T-shirts, those colors, those rites and rituals that people use, that establishes membership. Who are the people in it and who are the people outside of it? What do you want to change? Do you want to change your hall? Do you want to change your class? Who are the members? Also, when it comes to creating a community, the second thing is this: create influence. Now, this is the thing a lot of people get wrong, right? Is that, oh yeah, hey, I'm the president of this organization, or I'm leading this grassroots organization. I am the person of influence. Yeah, go talk to the audience or go to the members. If members don't feel like they have influence in something, this would say that a sense of community cannot be built. Influence. How are they influencing you? How are you influencing them? Okay, the third thing when it comes to communities built around self-talk is this: you are fulfilling a need. You are fulfilling a need. That's why a person wants to be a member of the revolution, of the group, of the community, right? What this looks at is like creating members that connect through peer support, accommodating each member's self-talk requirements, sharing tips on positive self-talk practices. All of that fulfills needs. And here's the other thing, the fourth thing, and that's fostering a shared emotional connection. I didn't meet you guys yet, but I do remember what it was like to sit in an audience as a student in some symposiums like this. I remember what it was like to be half awake at 9 o'clock in the morning, stumbling in kind of at 9:10 in the morning, right? That's my shared emotional connection with you. And that's sort of the reason why I'm going to send you these details in the slides, in the email I'm going to send you. I just want to make the emotional connection with you. I also want to thank you for being here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. So here we go. Membership or sense of community sounds like this. Who are the members? Number 2, how are we influencing each other? Number 3, how is this fulfilling needs? And number 4, how are we creating a shared emotional connection? Wherever you go, whether it be like business or whether you're in your clubs, whether you're in a band, all of these things are important. One of our guitarists actually left because, I'm realizing this now, we were taking from him, and he didn't have any influence. He just had to play the songs we gave him. It makes sense why Rob left. It's a big deal, okay? Okay, this one's fun too. So I want you to think about this. Institutions, organizations, right? I want you to think about if there's an organization out there in which you, me, someone else goes and enters the organization, the amount of time that I'm in the organization is meaningful. But when I leave that organization, I'm going to be a better citizen for it. You know, a lot of people espouse that to be like nonprofits, or other people talk about colleges and universities where you come in a certain way and then you leave elevated. There's a researcher named Hellwell who went and looked at this and came and saw 5 things that every organization that wants to enable well-being, and in this case self-talk, does. So, these are the 5 things. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to give what his case study was. His case study wasn't a university or a grassroots organization. John's case study was a Singaporean prison system who was doing it right. And he wrote this article that said we should look at this organization, this institution, as enabling well-being, and let's try to duplicate this in our colleges, universities, clubs, families, etc. So he said this is the way to create an institution that enables well-being. Number 1 is this: understand that the process matters. Always people are, outcomes matter as well. But the way things that can be done matters just as much as getting them done. In your clubs, in your institutions, what are the processes and why do they matter? Doing great work. I don't know about this, but have you ever been a part of a team or an organization where it just feels freaking good to do, to be a part of that organization? It feels like humble bragging, but it's not. I got pulled into Habitat for Humanity when I was in college, and God, did that feel so good to be able to do that with a group of people. To be able to do stuff together that has exponential benevolence. What are the things that you're doing right now that creates exponential benevolence? This is something that I know that I've struggled with, and I get really achy about it, and it's this. Trust matters. There's been times in a job where I'm sitting there in a meeting, and I don't know if you've done this, whether it's your job or here in the university, where you're like, dude, just give me the ball and I can run with it. Why are you micromanaging me? Why are you making me doubt myself? Well, building trust is a huge way to promote self-talk as well as well-being. To let somebody take something and roll with it. Now, when I worked at Emory, a lot of folks that that were above me didn't like the fact that I would go and create all this, generate money for internships, and then I'd just say, look, this is what we need to do. This is the date it needs to be done. Come and find me, and I'll be here every single time. They got it done in half the time, and it's not because of the fact that I'm a great manager. I feel it's because I had a great mentor who said, let them go and run with the ball. Westminster, how are you letting people go and run with the ball here? Seniors, you're about to take some big time jobs next year. And I was about to should myself, that's why I caught it. How are you going to be able to take the ball and run with it? When you're managing people, managers in here, how much do you want to give people that piece of paper and say, dude, do it this way at this time, wear this shirt and do this and show up here? Yeah, but you might lose that person. You might mess up the trust so much that they're having negative self-talk. Building positivity is a big thing as well. And here's why. In terms of the work that we do, in terms of the things that matter, in terms of the assessments that we do, I was looking for a healthy campus here, and I don't think you guys do a healthy campus coalition here. Maybe, all right? But what a lot of assessments and goals put out there are goals around things like, we don't want to see a counseling center that's overbooked, people being burned out. We want to see sexual violence go down on this campus. Yeah, but those are important, and we don't talk about the questions that we ask about what are we doing right. We're not, it's one thing to talk about reducing risk, but the absence of risk does not mean the presence of positivity and happiness and productivity and self-talk. Is there a way that we can go and install something here at Westminster where we are building on positive outcomes based on self-talk and the way that it's always been done here? Just build self-talk into the organizational culture. And then finally, engagement from within. And this might be because I am a total rebel, but also at the same time, when a university or a group of people come in and they say, this is what we're going to do for you, in the same way that Hans Hobby Shop said, this is the way that we're going to build that Hornet for you. They didn't include me in it. When changes came as a student, I wasn't included. And it's not me talking about me. There were no chairs for students to speak. Engagement from within. Also at the same time, people will talk about top-down ways of strategizing. I would also go and say, what are the bottom-up ways of strategizing? How can we truly make all of this matter? process matters. Man, you're going to get a lot of slides, folks. Yep. Okay. So I want to talk about this as the final piece. Is there a social, emotional contagiousness course here? Okay. So you can Wikipedia it in front of you, or you can listen, because this is so dope. Like, I love this idea, and it's actually spread. It's becoming one of the biggest things studied right now. If you ever want to go for a master's and stuff like this, there's a part of study called, nope. So I'll get to that later. Called emotional contagiousness, and what it looks at is this. One of the studies that I wanted to talk to you about was, there was a study that went and showed sort of the baseline of like depression on a first-year student residential center floor. And what they found was, if a new student came into a place that was kind of depressed, they would kind of be depressed too. And when folks were studied for flourishing on another part of the campus, same first-year student cohort, their happiness would go up a little bit. Emotional contagion goes and says that emotions spread. So if we're living in a place where self-oppression is the norm, how can we ever see things like enablers of well-being and self-talk happening? How can we ever see a culture where self-talk and happiness and joy are promoted? So emotional contagion does just that. It goes and it looks at these emotions, these groups that are put together, and how much they are connected through emotions. Sometimes emotions go up, and sometimes emotions go down. Anyone ever heard the idea of collective effervescence? Sweet, I just learned about it like a year ago too. What collective effervescence says is this. It takes the idea of emotional contagion, and it says, what are the things that we can make happen, or the things that we can install into a community where a sense of belonging is running wild. People are ebullient. People are joyful to be a part of something, right? One of the things that always came up when it came to social justice in places that I worked were that things were kind of angry, or we would take sides. And collective effervescence goes and says, or actually this is what happened too. I hope this never happens, but it's happening quite often. Tragedies, school shooters on campus, can oftentimes bring a campus together, right? What collective effervescence says is, how can a community come together on joy? If you've ever been like a part of a Super Bowl winning like team, or you've ever been a part of sports and you just lose it. I remember winning the Super Bowl, and my dad and I went over to the stadium, and like people were hugging us and we were high-fiving. Collective ebullience. What can be done here on Westminster? Sorry, y'all. What can be done here at Westminster to create collective ebullience, collective effervescence, where things are just so high that it just knocks your feet off? I put together some retreats for Filipino American students, and what we saw was, when we created a collective effervescent moment for them, we work with them through the whole week. At the end of the week, we have an incredible send-off and closing ceremony in a circle, right? Collective effervescence, and as a result, 4 years later, time and time again, those students were still connected. How can we create collective effervescence on this campus? There's the emotional contagion part. Oh, so this is something that I wrote for you guys. Campus-wide days of gratitude and affirmation. Y'all, you're already here for the symposium. How can you have infused gratitude and affirmation with it? Mass meditations, flash mobs spreading joy. I don't think flash mobs are in though anymore, right? Like nobody does though. Yeah, okay. Pep rallies, school spirit, something to be excited over. And so there's a lot of things that I presented today, and like I said, I've got a really cool slideshow for those of you who want to go and dig deeper into these things. I also have an invitation if those of you want to come on my podcast, and everyone will be brought onto it. I am going to be talking about self-talk And I've got a free course in there about positive psychology for you. It's probably not as good as the positive psychology course here, but only 2 people took it. So there's that. There's a lot of things that are in here. Sharing your story, the effect of media, the way that collective effervescence can run through institutions' veins, right? And there was a point where I kept asking myself what was going wrong with me. I couldn't identify any self-talk. For my parents who came to the United States and gave me and my sister everything we've ever wanted, to go back and say, I don't care, or this is what it felt like, I don't care what you do or say, parents, I'm going to run off and join a band. The sadness that I felt after every single performance. Or when I just couldn't stop saying what went wrong. And there was a point where I was in a DC, I was in a conference, and they wanted to look at Asian Americans in the arts. And the night before, I wrote this. I talked to myself about what went wrong. And think, sometimes I sit and think where I had gone wrong. Was it between the point where a boy becomes a man? Or maybe I just never became anything to sit and think about. Sometimes I think about that. If I don't fit in this world, will I ever find a place I call home? For a moment, I thought it's right to think it's so easy when no one is watching every move that I make. Hear them saying, where did he go wrong? I used to think if I made my life a living hell, I'd learn to love it, and in turn I'd love myself. But that's all changing, 'cause I've been taking my sweet time to sit and think about. And yet I think about that. If I don't fit in this world, will I ever find a place I call home? For a moment, I thought it's right to think it's so easy when no one is watching every move that I make. Hear them saying, where did he go? Where did I go wrong? I see the way your face looks down on me, but disappointment's a difficult word to swallow. So here I sit and think, if ever I went wrong, it was the times when I wasn't a servant to myself. So I recommit to believing what resides inside is all I need to get by. So I won't think about that. If I don't fit in this world, will I ever find a place I call home? For a moment, I thought it's right to think it's so easy when no one is watching every move that I make. Hear them saying, where did he go? If I don't fit in this world, will I ever find a place I call home? For a moment, I thought it's right to think it's so easy when no one is watching every move that I make. Hear them saying, where did he go? Where did I go wrong? You like it? Yeah. Don't clap. Get it on iTunes. Like, I need 17 of you guys to buy it so I can get like free internet on the plane. So again, I just wanted to thank you all so much, and let me go and get the contact information up for you there. And I wanted to end with this. And this is something that my mentor taught me or told me 20 years ago. And he took me aside and he said this: the more and more you put yourself out in the world, the more and more that you live in congruence to what you're passionate about and what you love doing, the more and more you are going to feel yourself being pulled in a million different directions. The big part of your life is figuring out what part of that million different directions is your voice. So thank you so much. I love this. Amazing. Thank you so much, y'all. And yeah, I'm going to send you some stuff. So thanks so much.
Or maybe about one question, if anyone has a question. No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, guys.